Today we're going to be jumping into the slightly macro side of things. We're going to be looking at those higher time frames. If you're looking for the shorter time frames, we're going to go over that on Sunday in the afternoon, where we're going to give you those updated weekly ranges and everything like that. So we will be updating you on those shorter time frames, but it is always good to keep the bigger picture in mind. And what I am seeing at this moment from the bigger picture being the daily scale is we are starting to look eerily similar to this little spot right here, at least as far as the signals go, except it might even be a little bit worse than right over here. So we have to pay attention to it. Let's get into that technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta. Looking over at AMC and GME because there's some big things going on with GME over there. So let's get into it. So let's just take a blip back in the past and look at the signal that is turning way down here, right? We see the very obvious divergence at the top of 2022. This is where I actually went short on the market and made some pretty good money to the downside. So why would I be paying attention to this is because we're looking a little bit similar to that right now, except for this right here did not extend higher, right? We actually have a worse signal right now. So as I pull across, I just want you to keep in mind that structure and the MACD showing you some very good divergences, and then pay attention to the now, because the now, I think we're experiencing something very similar to that right here, where we're creating this kind of wonky small divergence here. But the reason that this can be even worse than the previous signal is just because of this point right here, able to see a big run. Because that got us high on this MACD, it tells us that momentum was very high here, and now it has faded significantly. And I want you to see just how significant that is on your RSI, right? On the RSI really coming down there. So something to very much that you want to be aware of going over the next couple of weeks is if we run into weakness for whatever reason, and the reason that we're having to pay attention to this signal is because of the 50 basis point cut. A 50 basis point cut means they are changing for some reason, right? Why wouldn't they just do 25 basis points if everything was all good and everything's fine and they can slowly cut, which was their plan the entire time for a soft landing? Something has changed. I know that they're saying, hey, everything's good, but that is exactly what happens in every single situation before a crash. So what the 50 basis point thing did was said, hey, we're just going to shorten that timeline, right? That timeline has been a little bit shortened. Originally, we were talking about, hey, it could take up to 18 months in order for this thing to go down. But I think because of the 50 basis point cut, we're actually going to see either something bad come up very, very soon, or it might take all the way into spring of 2025. So spring of 2025. But right now we have these signals. They look eerily similar to the tops of 2022. Not exactly the same because of this blip, but I think it makes it look even worse. So this is something that I'm paying a close attention to. The thing you want to pay attention to is if this is curling down on that MACD. Now, as of this moment, we are not curled down. So this is a bullish signal until it crosses back down. So we'll pay attention to that going forward, but this is something key to understand. As we zoom out to a weekly scale, I just wanted to show you the last time that we had this wonkiness on the MACD, right? We're starting to create that wonkiness, which means we can still head higher, right? We can still head higher. You'll notice all the wonkiness we had in here, but once we actually made that divergence point, that's when things started to struggle a little bit. And we've already made that divergence point over here on the MACD. It's just a little bit higher up. So what we want to pay attention to is if positivity is going to come, that could just be for a week or two, and then we see that drop off. So this is why we have to be very aware of the macro signals, and the shorter time frames on Sunday will really help us out in seeing what signals are going to cross over. So if you'd like to get the shorter time frames, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. But this is a signal that to the upside on the weekly scale, you do have weakness forming as far as momentum goes, and that's why you really got to pay attention to the next few weeks. And then because of the 50 basis points, if we do end up going higher, right, we still trade the signals if things start to curl up. I know we're talking about downside, but if things do keep curling up, right, weeklies keep curling up and things like that, I think this could lead all the way into spring of 2025. Hold your horses because the Qs have not been able to really break out and get that new all-time high. Now, if that weekly crosses up, you're probably getting that new all-time high, right? So that's something we can pay attention to. But I just wanted you to notice how the Qs are the weaker signal, right? You have a bunch of divergences. You're closer to the center line at this point. And this is, as of right now, on the daily scale, creating those lower highs. So we'll pay attention to that. We're going to flip over to the daily scale in a moment. But the weekly scale here, I just wanted to mention how right now you do have this super flatness across the board for the RSI, super flat across the board for the MACD here as well, right? So this just means to me that the Qs actually look a little bit weaker because of the positioning of this MACD, not able to go as high as the SPY, which makes total sense towards a top, right? We go to a top, and you notice that in the past, what did we say with SPY at the beginning of this video? Well, they made that little divergence that was kind of wonky, right? But what did the Qs do? They made a bunch of them, right? They made a bunch of divergences here that ended up leading to one more push higher right here and downfall. So as of right now, you have 1, 2, 3, maybe you go make a fourth point and we do head higher. But at this moment, you would say the Qs do look a little bit weaker. We're seeing very similar signals to what we saw back in 2022, 2021. Switch it up. Something bullish though is the daily scale is turned up, right? So this is overall a bullish thing. It is still momentum to the upside at this moment. We saw the shorter time frames give that weakness. That's why you got to make sure you subscribe over the weekend so we can go over those shorter time frames, give you those updated weekly ranges, okay? And that's a 68% zone that we land in 68% of the time. This is what we use. We use the options data in order to calculate the expected move within a 68% zone there, and we actually landed in it this week. So that's what we're going to go over on Sunday. But for the most part, what do we need to pay attention to here? The Qs, a lot of the time at major tops, will not be able to go to that all-time high. The SPY will, right? So the SPY goes to it, the Qs can't do it. Right now, I'm looking at this. If this can cross over, you might even have a double top in here. I'm looking to break through that channel, all those things. But as of right now, that's still a bullish signal. So you still have to see that daily rotate down, curl down on this MACD and go into that negative trend. And that's a key thing to understand about the MACD. It's something we discuss in those courses down in the description a lot, is the positioning of the MACD matters. How close you are to the center line does matter. That's how we understand these indicators, and really understanding them can help you become a better trader if you're going to use something like MACD and RSI. Something we go over a lot in the course, and a lot of people do talk about the MACD section because they look at it differently now, which is awesome. But if this would curl down, bad things. Why? Negative territory, which means negative trend, which if you're going into a negative trend here, the most likely thing if this curls over and goes negative is to take out this low and go make a new one. So that's why we have to be paying attention to downside. Even though this is a bullish signal, we're going to go over those shorter time frames and show you guys some stuff. Now, Apple on the daily scale, this really doesn't look bad, right? We had some downside. We created that lower high. Then we're trying to react back up. This is the start of something very bullish, but you have to break through these levels. You really have to break through and get that momentum going. Okay, that momentum says, hey, I'm supposed to be going, and then we get a candle like this. So this is something to pay attention to because we are still so close to that center line. It means, yeah, we can go up for a couple of days, but if we don't close firmly above this level, then we can just roll right back down, and that will be most likely thing there is to test the low and go make a new one. So you do have some potential for bad things if that's going to roll over, and we do see the dollar trying to bottom once again, which tells me, hey, I have to be careful of some kind of downside coming, and that's something to pay attention to. So we're going to look at the dollar and volatility a little bit towards the end of this video. Make sure you watch all the way to the end, but right now you really just got to watch Apple and say, if that curls down on this MACD, it's not going to be a good sign. Now, on the other side of things, right, we want to pay attention to the fact that it tried to break out on that daily scale. It's kind of a bullish look right now. I know we just talked about the bearish side, how to react to it, but it is a bullish look to cross up on the daily scale, just not the best candle. But when you really look at the weekly scale, you're going, this thing has been up for a little while. Maybe it gets some kind of reaction and then it's able to curl down, right? We like those pullbacks. We like those pullbacks because what if we set up another signal like this one over here that we caught? If that would curl up, right, we curl down, that would mean pullback is the most likely scenario. And then Apple might have one more move higher to go create that divergence point. So that is something we are going to pay attention to with Apple. As of right now, it looks like it needs at least a weekly pullback. Tesla is mainly something we are going to talk about on the shorter time frames. We do give ranges, right? Weekly ranges, 68% zones. If you're trading options, they are so helpful. It is insane. We even teach you in the course how to utilize them and really how to use them for your trades, how to use them for taking profits. So they're fantastic tools that not a lot of people use, and I think it's the most important thing to have if you're trading stocks every single week. So look into those weekly ranges. That would be the Patreon link down in the description. You just notice that this is still within range of going negative. Yes, this is a positive move. This is a positive move. I want to be very clear about that. And we're going to pull up something in a second that's pretty cool for Tesla because it might be a little bit different. But if that daily does rotate over, it's within range, just a couple of days of downside to really break through this. And you might just have a simple ABC pattern, right? We might just have some kind of simple ABC pattern that actually leads us down into this area here, 159, 160, which would maybe just tell us, hey, maybe we need to go touch this zone again, right? We touched that zone we created a long time ago. And what happened? Well, we gapped out of it. We did not want to be there long. So buyers are lurking in that area. And if you get a simple ABC pattern here for the daily scale, that can really end up going down towards 160, 155. And then the other thing we want to pay attention to is this little line right here. 180.92 has been a solid resistance, solid support. So if we can just break down to that level, that's when we'll pay attention for some kind of divergence, because we could see some kind of big move to the upside. Maybe some kind of euphoric celebration of the rate cuts is what we actually need to happen in the market before we can actually see a downfall. So that's something I'm paying attention to. Now, Tesla does have something a little bit different going on here, and I just wanted to point it out since we're talking about the macro side of things. The monthly scale is turning up, so it's really important to pay attention to what is going on with this at the end of the month, because if this is curling up into positive territory, that would tell you that this might be a good investment for, say, 6 to 12 months, I would say. With the 50 basis points into consideration when thinking about it, I would say 6 to 12 months makes sense here. Now, Tesla has been one of those stocks that has seen those curl ups, right? Curled up on the MACD and then faded it right away, right? Curled up on a bad bar, and that's the key thing here. It's a bad bar this time, over here, but in the nearest term, it is actually a pretty damn good bar. So this will be interesting. This would be a signal that says Tesla might be a good buy for, say, 6 to 12 months. Then I click over to Amazon on a monthly scale. I was mainly going to talk about the daily for Amazon, but let's just talk about this because this is some major divergence. And you actually see a lot of these monthly divergences. We've just covered them a lot, right? So we don't want to keep talking about the same thing. We want to kind of get a different take on the market every weekend. But I highly encourage you to just look through the SPY, look through the Qs, look through a lot of stocks right now on the monthly scale, and you are going to see this kind of look where you have a dramatic divergence down. You have a dramatic divergence down all the way back to, what is this, September of 2018, you still are holding that divergence across. So this does tell me that weakness on a monthly scale is happening, mainly meaning to the upside. We will not see very much more upside. If we actually curl down on this MACD, that's going to be your signal that that is confirming. And that means we could go test this low, maybe even go make a new one. But as we are positive here, we have to be open to anytime this thing wants to curl around, we'll pay attention to those signals for you, and we'll post that stuff on YouTube so you can be aware of what's going on. And we go live every single day of the week. I am back. I know I wasn't live all week, but that's just because of the construction of my house, but I am back and I'm ready to do some live videos. So we had a lot of fun on Friday, and I appreciate you guys liking these videos. So thank you, and please leave a like to this video if you find this stuff helpful. One thing that's kind of been sour is NVIDIA. NVIDIA has been a little bit sour, right? We found the reversal signal. That told us a mini squeeze was coming, right? I called it a mini squeeze. That could be a trap, and it looks like it might be a trap. Now, we still have to pay attention to those shorter time frames react, right? We don't know which way the market is going to go all the time. We just look for highly probable moves once momentum is confirmed, which is fantastic. It helps us trade like water. It keeps us humble, and I think that's a good thing as a trader. Now, for NVIDIA, though, you notice that this low, it did go into negative territory, and we've remained in negative territory. So if this does curl down for NVIDIA, you have a very high probability to break out of this triangle, I would say, and then see if you can actually break down a little bit lower, take out this low, maybe go make a new one, start some kind of daily negative trend, okay? We can break through this, maybe retest this area, and then break down a little bit lower. So that is something key I'd pay attention to, this rolling over, because it's still in negative territory. That is going to be a big deal. Now, if we're actually going to see upside, you're going to see this weekly be able to cross. So if we do get some kind of daily pullback, like let's just say the daily does do all of this, even if you get down to this level, this weekly is still going to be positive, and that could just curl up, right? That could just curl up into positive territory, and NVIDIA could end up back at 150, right? So we still could get a euphoric moment from the market, really celebrating those rate cuts, which is kind of granted, right? The information that the media is overall giving you is everything is fine. The information that politicians, for the most part, on one side are giving you, at least that are in charge right now, are telling you everything is great. You are making more money. You're doing fantastic. And the market's going to do fantastic as well. So if we keep up that sort of narrative, then you can really have people like Jerome Powell come out and telling people, hey, everything is fine, buy it. And that can end up turning up into positive territory. That is something key to pay attention to. We don't want to only be talking about negative things. We want to be aware of how things can shift to a positive trend, which a lot of things are still in a positive trend right now. We're just going to look into those shorter signals on the shorter timeframes on Sunday, because things are looking like we could roll down one more time right here. And we're just hoping it's not too bad, right? If you don't want the market to crash, then you would say, I hope it's not too bad, and I hope things curl back up. And this will be the signal to pay attention to if that is actually happening. And as we switch over to something like AMD, you'll notice how this is looking pretty good. On the weekly scale, you're about to go into a positive trend. If that can cross up, that can all be great, right? You can break out of this wedge, maybe see a big euphoric moment. So that's why we're paying attention to these things. But are we going to be able to do that? When we switch over to the daily scale, you just have to notice this is still positive. This is still overall bullish, right? But is this daily going to curl over? Because if that curls over, it kind of means we might head a little bit lower than the previous low. We're pretty close to negative territory. So good chance of that happening. Sorry, I get the hiccups. But this low can get tested, or we might go make a new one, because this crossing over is a bad thing. Now, this is a great curl up here. This is a fantastic curl up. So I still want to be aware if this is just touching in this zone and then curling back up, in case this is some kind of handle or something like that to actually break out to the upside. But if this does cross down and there's no reversal signals on shorter time frames, right, then we will be paying attention more so to downside, right? We won't be really saying, hey, this has a good shot to go up. Doesn't mean it can't, right? Things can V-shape, but if there's no reversal signal in it, and the signal looks really bad to the downside, that's how I'm going to treat it until something different happens, right? And then I'm going to react. That's how we really trade like water. Meta kind of gives a different story, right? We don't necessarily have divergences. We have a strong move from the daily. We're breaking through this channel line, right? So everything here really looks good. We had a solid, I would say, almost cup and handle. I would just say some good consolidation to break through that high. Because of this point right here, it might not be some kind of cup and handle, but we can just take this into consideration and say, this is very bullish. And I'm going to show you something else that makes it even more bullish. So Meta is a stock giving a different take, and that is the weekly scale is turning up here as of last week. So this tells us that the most likely thing for Meta is to actually see higher prices over the next few weeks. So we're paying attention to it. And then if we do get those higher prices, do we set up some kind of divergence here on the weekly scale? I actually think if the entire market, or multiple stocks or multiple tech stocks, if we actually end up going higher and we hit new all-time highs again right away early on in the next couple of weeks, well, then I'm going to be paying close attention to Meta. I think Meta will be a great hint of what kind of weakness we see going forward. It might give us some good timing as far as the weekly scale goes. So that is something that I'd be paying attention to for Meta. In the shorter time frames, we're mainly talking about, hey, Meta might need some kind of pullback now. But if that can consolidate, retest these broken out levels, hey, this weekly has turned up, which tells you for the next few weeks, it has a good chance to see higher prices. AMC and GME both have some very interesting signals. This is almost divergence, it's just barely not divergence on the RSI and the MACD at the same time. But you are getting that retest of the 200. You're remaining in this little triangle that we've made here. And you could see some kind of breakout if one key thing happens. I'd really be paying attention out there if you're paying attention to AMC and GME if dailies start to curl up, because this daily signal here is a big deal. Most of the time in the past, when you see that daily signal turn up, it does not turn down, but lately, since the short seller problem has come to light, we've seen that thing turn down over and over again. So it doesn't mean it has to happen, right? It doesn't mean something crazy has to happen, and this curling up just means this is going to skyrocket to $1,000. It means, hey, if this turns up, it has a good probability of seeing higher prices and most likely breaking through this little trend here, this triangle. So that is why I want to pay attention to it. It doesn't mean it has to go to $1,000. This could easily go to $6 and then start to fade back down. and then crosses back down, okay, we pay attention to it. But I just want you to be aware, this is a decent reversal signal if you can get that MACD to curl up. And as we switch over to GME, you're gonna really understand why I'm talking about why this could be a good signal, because we know AMC and GME are kind of tied together, and that is a great move. That is a fantastic move on a Friday right before we go into a Monday, which the craziness happened on a Monday. So if I, once again, right, it's a kind of a similar thing to what we said right here. Right here, we said if I was kind of a man who is trying to figure out, the most probable time this can happen, well, it's the time where that MACD curls up. And if I know that divergences are how I see weakness and momentum in one direction, well, then I have those divergences right now. So all of these signals right here, and even popping up there on the RSI there with the latest signal, that is at the same time. So this can see a massive move. GameStop can see a massive move if you just get a simple curl up of that daily MACD. We are going to update you on those crazy, the crazy level, right? The unexpected level, that level that we give you every single Sunday so you can tell if AMC or GME are seeing something unexpected, are in a potential gamma squeeze at that point. So that is something we want to find out. And if you didn't know, as far as it goes, most of the time what you're going to see is a gamma squeeze. If you're wanting the short squeeze, most likely you're first going to see a gamma squeeze. And then in order for that to be a short squeeze, you're probably going to have to at least be above maybe even $100 at that point. So that's something to pay attention to. But the key thing to take away from this little portion is for AMC and GME, you need those dailies to curl up to get bullish. Are we surprised that we went to all-time highs? No, we're not surprised at all. Why? Because volatility turned down, right? Volatility was turning down. It gave those topping signals. I took a little volatility short play there we talked about during the live videos a couple weeks ago. And we noticed that this curled down on the MACD. What did we always say? If this curls over on the MACD, we're most likely going to see all-time highs. And then we saw it pretty much shortly after, saw a little bounce in volatility. Now we've subsided again. So we really have to pay attention to the fact that this is still above the 200. You're still holding that crash signal. This is why I kind of believe something could happen a little bit quicker, is because this signal is already flashing red and we have not broken back below it. If we really look in the past, the times where you see that, oh my gosh, we're going to crash, it fades below it one more time right away, right? It's pretty quick. And the 50 is not able to cross the 200. We see this big move, big move, big move, and it fades right away, right? We see a little divergence up here and it fades. And the 50 was not able to cross the 200, right? If we even go back a little bit further, we see these spikes in volatility. It fades very quickly. This is not fading very quickly. This is not popping up and fading right back down. This actually crossed this time. That is a major crash signal. And we are holding above the 200 at this point. So volatility, extreme volatility, can come in at almost any time right now. And the main signal to watch here is if that daily scale starts to turn up. You remember that last time the daily turned up right over here and we said, uh-oh, watch out, because that had divergence down here at these levels. And then boom, we see a skyrocket in volatility that never curled back down on the daily scale. This was a fantastic trade that I was in. I wish I got out a day later, right? I got out right in this area, but if I would have held for another day, I think it was like 400% versus 4,000% on that play. And I was like, bummer. But at least we made money in the move, right? We make money in the move. The whole point of trading is to trade something, buy something for less, sell it for more. And that's exactly what we were able to do on this channel at that moment, which is fantastic. But the main signal you need here, daily time frame again, right? You need this daily to curl back up into positive territory. And it just so happens that this is kind of lining up too close to the center line. If that can see that, and we do have reversal signals here we're going to talk about on Sunday, if we can see that push higher, what if GameStop and AMC are doing the same thing and we see that GameStop and AMC are actually crashing the stock market, which is more AMC and GME are going to be a product of the market crashing. It's not necessarily GME and AMC. I wouldn't think that at that point. I'll try to, look into it a little further at that point. But from what I'm seeing in front of me, it more seems like the market is going to subside, and then the AMC and GME short sellers and market makers are going to run into liquidity issues, collateral issues, and that is more what I'm paying attention to on that side of things. But I think it's interesting that volatility is holding up so well. And we're also seeing signals from AMC and GME. We're seeing some topping out signals from the SPY at the same time. The dollar we are mainly going to talk about on Sunday, right? But we wanted to point out this area here does have reversal signals. That's what we're going to talk about on Sunday. The main thing I wanted to show here was if we're going to all-time highs, this probably should have crossed over and we probably should have went down towards 99.41. That's what my assessment was looking at this week. Even though I wasn't live and couldn't put out content, I still was looking at stuff on my phone and just saying, hey, if this is really going to be a major bullish move, then the dollar needs to cross down. That has not happened yet. You see it really trying to hold here. What if that just rejects right away and we're actually in turmoil early on this week? So this is something key to pay attention to. We do have basing out signals. These same exact signals that we saw right here, you're seeing right here, and even more dramatic, I think. So we'll pay attention to this on Sunday. But if I'm seeing the same signals here and that produced that, we went and retested that level. Now I'm producing it again. And now I have that weakness in momentum. If I get that rejection, we might see people fly to cash all of a sudden for some reason. And you know, if they're flying into cash, then they're flying out of stocks. All right, so the main takeaway here is, yes, we pointed out a lot of signals. We pointed out some bullish ones, we pointed out some bearish ones, we pointed out this one right here, but the key thing with this one right here is this needs to confirm, right? This is still bullish until it's not. That's the thing. You never want to try to guess which way the market is going. It is better to try to use these indicators in order to help you trade, right? They're supposed to be helping you trade. So let them do the trading for you. You just make an educated decision based on the probabilities. That is the overall way that you could be a good trader, is really waiting for things to add up to confirming and things like that. And then you can pay attention to those shorter time frames to give you a hint if this has a higher likelihood of rolling back down. And that's what we are going to give you on Sunday. So thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure you're subscribed and thank you for liking the video. Really appreciate it. You guys are fantastic. And I will be live this week. Everything is fixed up at the house, so we should be good to go. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Make sure to dedicate some of your time to just having fun, right? Don't sit and look at charts all weekend. Make sure you go have a good time. Make sure you're reloaded for the week ahead because it could be an interesting one. All right, guys, I'm taking off. Peace.